Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. It was a rainy evening in New York City. The streets were slick with water, and the soft hum of traffic could barely be heard over the steady downpour. Anna Monroe stepped off the bus, adjusting the collar of her worn-out coat as the wind tugged at her hair. She was just another face in the crowd, ordinary, struggling, with no idea that her life was about to change forever. Anna worked as a caregiver, one of the many jobs she juggled to make ends meet. But tonight was different. Tonight, she was about to meet someone who would change the course of her life. Anna's phone buzzed. A text message from her supervisor flashed across the screen. Meet Mr. Carter's son at 7 p.m. New assignment. Don't be late. She barely had time to process the message before a sleek black car pulled up in front of her. The driver, a man in a dark suit, waved her in. You're late, he said, his voice flat and businesslike. Anna nodded, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on her. I know, she said, her voice small. As they drove, Anna couldn't help but feel nervous. Mr. Carter's son was one of the wealthiest men in the city, rich, powerful, and, from what she had heard, not very approachable. She tried to push the thought from her mind as the car turned into the gated entrance of a grand mansion. The kind of mansion people only saw in movies. The driver let her out at the door and gestured for her to enter. Anna walked inside, her shoes clicking against the polished marble floors. Inside, the atmosphere was tense, and Anna could feel it in the air. She was ushered into a grand study where the man himself was waiting. Liam Carter. Tall, well-dressed, with sharp features and cold, calculating eyes. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. You're here for my father, he said. He's been in a coma for weeks now. I need someone to care for him. We're offering a significant sum for your time and effort. Anna nodded. She wasn't doing it for the money, but she had to admit it was an offer she couldn't refuse. I understand, Anna replied, trying to keep her voice steady. But what exactly do you need from me? Liam leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. My father's condition is delicate. He needs round-the-clock care, but there's more to it than that. We need someone to keep up appearances. My father's will stipulates that I can't inherit the family fortune unless I'm married. I need you to pretend to be my wife for the next few months. This is purely a contract. No emotional attachment. Just a professional arrangement. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had expected some form of arrangement, but this? A fake marriage? She was a caregiver, not an actress. But the offer was tempting. Her life was in tatters, and this could change everything. Liam's eyes locked with hers as he waited for her answer. There was no going back once she agreed, but Anna saw no other choice. I'll do it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For your father. For the money. I'll play the part. Liam stood up, offering his hand. Good. We'll draw up the papers tomorrow. In the meantime, you'll start caring for my father. He'll need you more than ever. Anna's stomach churned as she shook his hand. She was about to enter a world far beyond her own, a world of wealth, power, and cold business transactions. But little did she know, the line between fake and real would soon blur. As she followed Liam into the next room to meet his father, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something much more complicated than a simple arrangement. And as for Liam, he had no idea that the woman he was about to marry for business would be the one to change everything in his life. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's dive into the story. It was a rainy evening in New York City. The streets were slick with water, and the soft hum of traffic could barely be heard over the steady downpour. Anna Monroe stepped off the bus, adjusting the collar of her worn-out coat as the wind tugged at her hair. She was just another face in the crowd, ordinary, struggling, with no idea that her life was about to change forever. Anna worked as a caregiver, one of the many jobs she juggled to make ends meet. But tonight was different. Tonight, she was about to meet someone who would change the course of her life. Anna's phone buzzed. A text message from her supervisor flashed across the screen. Meet Mr. Carter's son at 7 p.m. New assignment. Don't be late. She barely had time to process the message before a sleek black car pulled up in front of her. The driver, a man in a dark suit, waved her in. You're late, he said, his voice flat and businesslike. Anna nodded, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on her. I know, she said, her voice small. As they drove, Anna couldn't help but feel nervous. Mr. Carter's son was one of the wealthiest men in the city, rich, powerful, and, from what she had heard, not very approachable. She tried to push the thought from her mind as the car turned into the gated entrance of a grand mansion. The kind of mansion people only saw in movies. The driver let her out at the door and gestured for her to enter. Anna walked inside, her shoes clicking against the polished marble floors. Inside, the atmosphere was tense, and Anna could feel it in the air. She was ushered into a grand study where the man himself was waiting. Liam Carter. Tall, well-dressed, with sharp features and cold, calculating eyes. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. You're here for my father, he said. He's been in a coma for weeks now. I need someone to care for him. We're offering a significant sum for your time and effort. Anna nodded. She wasn't doing it for the money, but she had to admit it was an offer she couldn't refuse. I understand, Anna replied, trying to keep her voice steady. But what exactly do you need from me? Liam leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. My father's condition is delicate. He needs round-the-clock care, but there's more to it than that. We need someone to keep up appearances. My father's will stipulates that I can't inherit the family fortune unless I'm married. I need you to pretend to be my wife for the next few months. This is purely a contract. No emotional attachment. Just a professional arrangement. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had expected some form of arrangement, but this? A fake marriage? She was a caregiver, not an actress. But the offer was tempting. Her life was in tatters, and this could change everything. Liam's eyes locked with hers as he waited for her answer. There was no going back once she agreed, but Anna saw no other choice. I'll do it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For your father. For the money. I'll play the part. Liam stood up, offering his hand. Good. We'll draw up the papers tomorrow. In the meantime, you'll start caring for my father. He'll need you more than ever. Anna's stomach churned as she shook his hand. She was about to enter a world far beyond her own, a world of wealth, power, and cold business transactions. But little did she know, the line between fake and real would soon blur. As she followed Liam into the next room to meet his father, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something much more complicated than a simple arrangement. And as for Liam, he had no idea that the woman he was about to marry for business would be the one to change everything in his life. The next day, Anna arrived at the mansion early in the morning, her heart pounding as she stood in front of the massive gates. The mansion loomed in front of her, its imposing structure a symbol of wealth and power. She felt a wave of uncertainty, but she quickly pushed it aside. This was her job now. She had made a promise, and she intended to keep it. As the driver pulled up, she could see Liam already waiting for her at the door. His cold, calculating gaze met hers as he nodded toward the house. Come inside. We'll go over the details, he said. His tone was businesslike, but Anna could sense a quiet authority in it. She followed him inside, her footsteps echoing on the marble floors. The house was as grand inside as it was on the outside. High ceilings, expensive art on the walls, and furnishings that exuded luxury. Anna couldn't help but feel out of place. She was just a caregiver, someone used to the small, cramped apartments and modest homes of the people she cared for. But this world was different, a world she could never have imagined. She followed Liam down a long hallway and into a spacious room where his father lay in a large, expensive bed. Mr. Carter, the man she was here to care for, looked pale and frail, connected to a web of medical machines. Anna felt a pang of sympathy for him, but she quickly pushed the feeling aside. This was just a job, a contract. No emotions. This is my father, Richard Carter, Liam said, his voice softening just slightly as he looked at the man in the bed. He's been in a coma for almost a month. The doctors are doing everything they can, but we don't know when, if, he'll wake up. Anna nodded, her professional demeanor kicking in. I'll take good care of him, she said. Liam gave her a curt nod and left the room, leaving her alone with Mr. Carter. The first few days were difficult. Anna spent her time adjusting to the mansion's routine, feeding Mr. Carter, changing his bed sheets, and keeping track of his medications. It was exhausting work, but she did it without complaint. Every now and then, Liam would check in, his visits brief but intense. He never stayed long, never seemed to relax, and always seemed to be in a rush. But Anna understood. He had a business to run, a life that couldn't be put on hold. She, on the other hand, had nothing but time to focus on his father. As the days turned into weeks, Anna started to settle into her role. She began to feel more comfortable in the mansion, though she still felt like an outsider. Liam remained distant, his cold exterior never wavering. He wasn't unkind, just detached. But something about him intrigued Anna. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but there was a depth to him, a vulnerability hidden beneath his perfect exterior. One evening, after a long day of caring for Mr. Carter, Anna was sitting in the kitchen, sipping a cup of tea, when Liam unexpectedly entered. "How's my father doing?" Liam asked, his voice softer than usual. Anna looked up at him, surprised by the concern in his tone. "He's stable. I think he's starting to respond to the treatments. A little bit at a time," she replied. Liam nodded, but he didn't leave. Instead, he stood there for a moment, as if weighing something in his mind. "Anna, I know this isn't what you signed up for. You're doing a lot for my family, and I'm grateful," he said, his eyes meeting hers. I know it's hard for you." Anna hesitated, then put down her cup of tea. "It's my job," she said simply. "And it's not as hard as you think. I'm just doing what I can to help." There was a long silence between them, and for the first time since she had arrived, Anna saw a flicker of something in Liam's eyes, a hint of gratitude, or maybe even something deeper. She couldn't be sure, but it made her heart skip a beat. "I know," Liam said quietly, almost to himself. "I don't say it enough, but you're doing more than you think. I appreciate it." For the first time, Anna smiled. It was a small, fleeting thing, but it made her feel a little lighter, like maybe she wasn't just a stranger in this cold, vast mansion. Maybe she was starting to matter. Over the next few days, Liam continued to visit, and their conversations grew a little more personal. He would ask about her life, her struggles, and she would tell him about the long hours, the difficult clients, and the dreams she still had of one day opening her own art studio. Liam, in turn, opened up a little about his own life, his childhood, his estranged relationship with his father, and the pressures of running a multi-million-dollar empire. As they spent more time together, Anna began to see a different side of Liam. He wasn't just the cold, distant businessman she had first encountered. He was a man burdened by responsibilities, with his own fears and insecurities. And, despite his wealth, there was a loneliness about him that she could relate to. She couldn't help but feel drawn to him, but she quickly pushed those thoughts aside. This was a fake marriage, after all. There could be no room for feelings. But as time went on, the lines between fake and real started to blur. Anna found herself caring more for Liam, and he seemed to be starting to care for her too. He began to rely on her, to trust her in ways that were unexpected. And every time they spoke, there was a little more warmth in his eyes, a little more softness in his voice. It wasn't love, not yet. But Anna couldn't help but wonder if something deeper was beginning to take root. And if that was the case, would it be enough to make her forget the terms of their contract, the boundaries they had set? Or would she continue to play her part, pretending to be his wife, even as her heart began to question the nature of their arrangement? The days passed, and Anna found herself at a crossroads. She wasn't sure where this was all leading, but one thing was clear. Her life, and Liam's, were no longer as separate as they once had been. And that scared her. It had been 3 weeks since Anna started caring for Richard Carter, and with each passing day, she felt a strange connection to the man she was supposed to be faking a marriage with. Liam's visits had become more frequent, though still short, and each time, Anna couldn't help but notice how his demeanor seemed to soften a little more, how his eyes lingered on her for just a moment longer than necessary. It was as if, over time, he began to trust her, not just with his father's care, but with pieces of his own life. One evening, after she had finished her shift and was preparing to leave, Anna heard a knock at the door. She opened it to find Liam standing there, his jacket soaked from the rain. He looked exhausted, his face tense with the weight of the world. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low. Anna hesitated but nodded, stepping aside to let him in. You look like you've had a long day, Anna said as she offered him a cup of tea. Liam nodded but didn't take it. Instead, he ran a hand through his wet hair and sighed deeply. It's been one of those days, he muttered, looking down at the floor. I'm sorry for the late visit. I just needed to talk to someone. He paused, as if unsure of how to continue. You're the only one I can talk to, Anna. You've been here every day, taking care of my father. He stopped again, his words failing him. Anna set the tea down and walked over to him, her hand gently resting on his arm. Liam, you don't have to apologize. I'm here to help. That's what I do. Her voice was gentle, reassuring. Liam looked up at her, his eyes meeting hers for the first time in days, and for a brief moment, there was a vulnerability there that she hadn't seen before. I don't know if I can keep doing this, Liam said suddenly, his voice cracking slightly. Running the company, handling my father's care, keeping up appearances for the will, it's all becoming too much. And the worst part is, I don't even know who to trust anymore. Anna's heart softened at his words. She had always seen him as the strong, confident CEO, but this side of him, the one that was burdened by so much pressure and doubt, was new. She understood what he was feeling, even if their worlds couldn't be more different. You're not alone, Liam, she said, her voice steady but full of empathy. You have me. You have people who care, even if it doesn't always feel that way. There was a long silence between them. Liam seemed to consider her words, and for a moment, Anna wondered if he might open up even more. But before she could say anything else, his phone rang, breaking the moment. He glanced at the screen, his expression hardening. I have to take this, he said, stepping away from Anna to answer the call. Anna stood there, her hands slightly trembling, unsure of what to make of the moment. The warmth that had begun to build between them seemed to fade as quickly as it had appeared. As Liam spoke on the phone, Anna couldn't help but think about everything that had happened so far. She had come into this situation as a hired caregiver, agreeing to a fake marriage for the sake of his family's fortune. But with every day that passed, the lines between fake and real were becoming harder to distinguish. She was beginning to care for Liam, not just as a patient son, but as a person, and she was starting to wonder if he felt the same. When Liam finished the call, he turned back to Anna, his expression unreadable. I have to go, he said, his voice now cold and distant again. I'll see you tomorrow. Anna nodded, watching him leave, the door closing behind him with a soft click. She stood there for a moment, still processing everything. The connection they had shared in that brief moment of vulnerability seemed to have slipped away as quickly as it came, leaving only the cold, businesslike arrangement they had originally agreed upon. As she walked back to her room, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that things were changing, that she was changing. The walls she had carefully built around herself were starting to crumble, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep up the facade. She had made a promise to herself not to get involved, not to let her feelings complicate things. But the longer she spent in this house, the harder it became to ignore what was happening between her and Liam. She wasn't sure where it would all lead, but one thing was certain. The lines between fake and real were blurring, and Anna was starting to wonder if it was possible to fall in love with someone who had started as nothing more than a contract. As the days passed, Anna found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between the woman she had promised to be, the woman who would keep her distance, and the woman who couldn't help but care for the man who was slowly breaking down the walls around her heart. It wasn't love, at least not yet. But with every passing day, it felt more like it could be. And for the first time since she had started this contract, Anna began to question, could she ever really keep her heart out of this arrangement? The days passed, and the weight of the situation seemed to grow heavier with each one. Anna had been living in the mansion for almost a month now, and the lines between the fake marriage she had agreed to and the emotions she was feeling were becoming increasingly blurred. She knew she was supposed to be here for Richard, Liam's father, but somewhere along the way, she had begun to care for Liam as well. The moments they shared, however brief, had left an impact on her, and every time he walked into the room, her heart skipped a beat. But she couldn't let herself fall for him. This was just a contract. She had to remind herself of that. There was no room for love here. One evening, as Anna was finishing her shift, she received a text from Liam. Meet me in the study. Important. Her heart raced as she read the message. It wasn't often that Liam asked for her, especially in the evenings. She felt a mix of nervousness and excitement, but she quickly pushed the feeling aside. She had a job to do, and that was all. When she walked into the study, Liam was standing by the large window, looking out at the city below. The soft glow of the city lights reflected off his face, casting shadows that made him look even more distant than usual. Anna paused for a moment, unsure of how to approach him. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, her voice tentative. Liam turned around slowly, his expression unreadable. "Yes," he said, his voice colder than usual. "I wanted to discuss something important." He motioned for her to sit, and Anna did, her heart beating faster as she wondered what he had to say. Liam stood by the desk, his hands resting on the edge as he looked down at the papers in front of him. "You've been doing an excellent job taking care of my father," he said, his tone stiff. "But I need you to do more. The doctors say he's stable, but he's not getting better. We need a miracle." Anna nodded, her heart aching for the man in the bed. She knew how important his recovery was to Liam, but she wasn't sure how much more she could do. "I'm doing everything I can," she said quietly. "But we can't force a miracle." For a moment, Liam didn't say anything. He just stared at the papers on the desk, as if deep in thought. Then, he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something I haven't told you, Anna," he said, turning to face her fully. "Something about my father's condition. It's not just about the will or the money." His voice cracked slightly, and Anna felt a surge of sympathy. She had always known that Liam was more than just the cold businessman he presented himself to be. There was a vulnerability in him, one that he rarely showed anyone. "My father and I don't have a good relationship. He hasn't been a part of my life for years, and now he's dying. And I'm supposed to sit here and pretend like I care. But the truth is, I've been waiting for him to wake up so I can finally get what's mine. The family business. The fortune. All of it." Anna was taken aback. She had always assumed that Liam was motivated by duty, by his desire to care for his family. But hearing him say that he was waiting for his father's death, waiting for the inheritance, left her speechless. "Liam," she started, but he cut her off. "I know," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "It sounds awful, doesn't it? But that's the truth. I've spent so many years resenting my father, hating him for abandoning me. And now, I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to make things right between us." He ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. "I've tried everything, but I can't do it alone. I need you to help me, Anna. Not just with him, but with everything. I need you to be here. With me. For the business. For my father. For everything." Anna felt a pang in her chest. This was not the man she had signed up to help. This wasn't the man who had hired her to play a part in his fake marriage. This was someone else. A man who was struggling. Someone who needed help, not just with his father's illness, but with his own soul. She knew that she should distance herself, but in that moment, something inside her shifted. She couldn't just walk away. "Not now. I don't know if I can do what you're asking," Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I can help you with your father. I can be here for him. I can be here for you." She took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "But I need to be honest with you. This arrangement, this fake marriage, it's not just a business transaction for me anymore. I'm starting to care about you, and I don't know how to handle that." Liam's eyes softened, and for the first time since Anna had met him, she saw something other than cold professionalism in his gaze. There was warmth there, an unspoken understanding. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, looking at her as if trying to process her words. Then, finally, he nodded. "I understand," he said quietly. "I feel the same way. But we can't let it complicate things. Not yet. We need to focus on what's important, my father's recovery, the business, everything." Anna nodded, even though a part of her was screaming to give in to the feelings that were beginning to take root. But she knew that for now, she had to keep her emotions in check. This was still a contract. Still fake. And no matter how much she might want it to be real, the truth was that their arrangement was nothing more than a business deal. But in that moment, as Liam looked at her with a mix of gratitude and longing, Anna couldn't help but wonder, was it possible for something fake to become real? Could a contract, born out of necessity, really turn into love? The days following that conversation with Liam were filled with uncertainty. Anna had agreed to continue her role as both the caregiver and the wife in their contract. But now, The lines between her professional duties and her personal feelings were becoming harder to ignore. She spent long hours tending to Richard Carter, his condition improving ever so slowly, while also keeping up appearances with Liam. But each day, she found herself more and more drawn to him, to the man who, despite his cold exterior, had revealed his vulnerability in that one moment of honesty. One evening, after finishing her duties with Richard, Anna was sitting in the kitchen, organizing the medications and checking the schedules. She was lost in thought when the sound of footsteps interrupted her. Liam appeared in the doorway, his usual sharp demeanor replaced with something softer. He looked different, tired yet somehow more open than he had been before. "Anna," he began, his voice low, "I know things between us have been complicated, to say the least, and I want to apologize for not being more clear about my intentions. I've asked a lot from you, and I haven't always been fair in how I've handled things. But I need you to understand something. You're not just a caregiver or an employee to me anymore. You've become someone I truly rely on." He paused for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "And I know I haven't said it enough, but I appreciate everything you've done, for my father, for me." Anna looked up at him, surprised by his words. She wasn't sure how to respond. The tension between them had been building for weeks, and now, she felt it reach its peak. Was he really saying what she thought he was saying? Or was this just another way to keep their arrangement professional? "Liam," Anna started, but her words faltered. She had spent so much time keeping her distance, convincing herself that this was just a job. But as she looked at him now, standing in the doorway, she realized she couldn't ignore the growing feelings she had for him. "You don't have to apologize," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just doing what I'm here for. Helping. It's what I do." Her heart was racing as she tried to keep her emotions in check. She had to remind herself that this was still a business arrangement. Liam stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I know it's not what you signed up for," he said, his voice softening. "But the more time I spend with you, the more I realize how much I've taken you for granted, and how much I don't want to lose you." Anna's breath caught in her throat. His words struck a chord deep within her, and for a moment, she could barely find the strength to speak. She had spent so long trying to convince herself that their relationship was purely professional, that it was just a matter of fulfilling the terms of the contract. But hearing him say those words, hearing him admit that he didn't want to lose her, made everything feel so much more real. "Liam," Anna began, her voice shaky, "this isn't what we agreed on. You can't just change things now. We're not supposed to get involved like this. I'm here for your father. I'm here to help with the business. This is just a contract." She could feel the weight of her own words as they left her lips. She didn't want to complicate things, but the truth was, she was already feeling too much. Liam took a step forward, closing the distance between them. "I know," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I've been trying to convince myself that this was all about the money and the business, but it's not. It's about you, Anna. You've become more to me than just someone I hired. I care about you, and I can't keep pretending that I don't." Anna felt her heart race. She had spent so much time guarding herself, telling herself that this wasn't real, that she wasn't allowed to feel anything for him. But now, with Liam standing so close, his confession hanging in the air between them, she realized that she could no longer deny what was happening. She wanted to be with him. She wanted to believe that this could be real. But a small voice in the back of her mind reminded her that this wasn't how things were supposed to go. This was still a contract. They were still bound by the terms they had set, and she had no idea what would happen if they crossed that line. Would it be worth the risk? Could they really make this work, or would it all fall apart? "Liam." Anna's words trailed off, her mind racing as she struggled to find the right thing to say. She wasn't sure what to do or what to feel anymore. All she knew was that the boundaries between them were blurring, and she couldn't hold back the feelings that were growing stronger by the day. Liam reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I don't want to rush you," he said, his voice full of understanding. "But I can't keep pretending this is just business. I want more, Anna, and I'm asking you to give me a chance." For a moment, Anna stood there, her heart pounding in her chest as she looked into his eyes. Could she really let herself fall for him? Could she risk everything, her job, her heart, on something that had started as nothing more than a business arrangement? As she stood there, caught between what was real and what was fake, Anna realized that she couldn't ignore her feelings any longer. But the question remained. Was she ready to take the leap? Or was the risk too great? The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. Anna couldn't stop thinking about Liam's words, about the way he had looked at her when he confessed that he cared for her. She had told herself over and over that this was just a job, that she was here for his father and nothing more. But now, those lines were completely blurred. Every time she saw him, her heart skipped a beat, and she found it harder and harder to push away the feelings she had tried to ignore. She knew she was walking a fine line, and the closer she got to Liam, the more dangerous it felt. One evening, after Richard's evening treatment, Anna found herself alone in the living room, flipping through a book as she waited for Liam. The house was quiet, the only sound the occasional hum of the old grandfather clock in the corner. She had just finished checking on Richard when Liam walked in, his usual confident stride slowed by something else, something heavy in his expression. "Anna, we need to talk," he said, his voice tinged with something Anna couldn't quite place. She set her book down and looked up at him, sensing that this conversation would be different from all the others. "About what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She had a feeling she knew what this was about, but part of her didn't want to face it. Liam took a deep breath and walked toward her, his eyes locked onto hers with a look of determination. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, his voice serious. "About everything. About what we've been doing here. And I can't ignore it anymore." He paused, as if collecting his thoughts, before continuing. "I can't keep pretending this is just a contract. It's not. And it never was." Anna's heart raced. She had been trying to keep her emotions in check, trying to convince herself that this was just a business arrangement. But hearing Liam say those words, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, made it all real. The moment they had shared a few days ago, when he had confessed his feelings, it was starting to feel like it was leading somewhere. But where? "Liam, what are you saying?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to stay calm. He took a step closer, his hand reaching out to gently touch hers. "I'm saying I care about you, Anna. And I know this is complicated. I know we've been walking a fine line, but I can't keep pretending it's just business. It's not. I want more. I want us to have a chance at something real." Anna felt her breath catch in her throat. For so long, she had kept her distance, telling herself that this was just a job. But now, with Liam standing before her, confessing his feelings, it felt impossible to ignore what was happening between them. "Liam, she began, but he gently interrupted her. "Anna, I know this isn't easy. I know I'm asking a lot. But I need you to understand that I don't want to lose what we have. I don't want this to just be a contract anymore. I want something more with you." The words hung in the air between them, and Anna felt a wave of emotions crashing over her. Her mind was racing, torn between what was practical and what was in her heart. Was she ready to take this step? Could she risk everything, her career, her heart, on something that had started as a business arrangement? For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Anna stared at Liam, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, something she hadn't seen before. He wasn't just a cold businessman anymore. He was a man who wanted to feel something real, something that wasn't dictated by the terms of a contract. "Liam, Anna's voice faltered as she tried to find the right words. She didn't know what to say. She had never been in a situation like this before. "I've never felt this way about anyone. I don't know if I'm ready to change everything. I don't know if I can trust myself with this. I'm not sure I can risk my heart." Liam took a step closer, his gaze softening. "Anna, I'm not asking you to risk everything. I'm asking you to take a chance with me, to let me show you that this is real, that we're real." Anna closed her eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the weight of the decision before her. She had always been cautious, always kept her guard up, but everything inside her was screaming to trust him, to take a chance on something that felt like it could be more than just a contract. "I don't know what this will look like," she said quietly, her voice filled with uncertainty. "But I know I can't keep pretending I don't care about you." Liam's expression softened, and for the first time, he smiled. A real smile, not the guarded one he usually wore. "Then let's take this step together," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "Let's figure it out, one day at a time." For the first time in what felt like forever, Anna felt like she could breathe. She wasn't sure where this was going, but for the first time, she was willing to find out. They were no longer bound by the contract, by the walls they had built between them. They were simply two people, willing to take a chance on something real. And as Liam reached for her hand, Anna knew that this was only the beginning of something neither of them had expected, but perhaps, just perhaps, it was everything they both needed. The next morning, everything seemed different. Anna woke up with a sense of uncertainty, but also an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. The night before, when she and Liam had opened up to each other, something inside her had shifted. They weren't just pretending anymore. The lines between business and emotion had finally blurred, and now, she was left with a choice, one that she wasn't sure she was ready for. As she stepped into the hallway, the sound of a phone ringing echoed through the house. She knew it was time to face whatever came next. Anna walked into the kitchen, her thoughts racing, when she saw Liam standing by the counter, his phone pressed to his ear. He was speaking in a low voice, his brow furrowed as he listened intently. For a moment, Anna just stood there, watching him, feeling the weight of the situation settling back in. She had agreed to this new path, to whatever this relationship could become, but part of her still felt like she was walking on shaky ground. Liam looked up and saw her standing there. He smiled, but there was a tiredness in his eyes. "I have to take this call," he said, holding up a hand to indicate he would be with her in a moment. Anna nodded silently, trying to keep her emotions in check. As he spoke with the person on the other end, she busied herself with preparing coffee, her thoughts drifting to what had happened the night before. As the minutes passed, Anna felt a growing sense of anxiety. She knew that while they had admitted their feelings to each other, the reality of their situation was far from simple. Liam had a business to run, and his father's health was still precarious. How would they balance everything? Could they really make this work, or was she setting herself up for disappointment? The phone call ended, and Liam turned to face her. He walked over to the counter, his expression now serious. "I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice soft. Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had known this moment was coming, the one where they would have to confront the challenges ahead. "What's on your mind?" Anna asked, trying to sound calm, though she could feel her hands trembling slightly as she set down her coffee cup. Liam hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "My father's condition is worsening," he said, his voice strained. "The doctors don't think he has much longer. And I don't know what to do." His gaze dropped to the floor, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of everything was finally catching up to him. Anna's heart went out to him. She had seen the tough exterior he projected, but in this moment, he looked vulnerable, lost. "Liam, I'm here for you," Anna said softly, stepping closer to him. "You're not alone in this. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Liam looked up at her, his eyes filled with gratitude but also uncertainty. "I don't want you to feel trapped in this, Anna. You didn't sign up for all of this. I don't want to ask too much from you." Anna took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. She had promised herself that she would keep her distance, that she wouldn't let her emotions get the best of her. But as she looked at him now, all she wanted was to be there for him, to offer him the support and comfort he so clearly needed. "Liam, we've already crossed a line," she said, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. "I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together, no matter what." He stared at her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers, as if looking for reassurance. And in that moment, Anna realized that she wasn't just here to care for his father or to fulfill a contract. She was here for Liam, for everything he was facing. And no matter what happened with his father's health, no matter what challenges they had ahead, she was ready to stand by him. Liam finally nodded, a small but genuine smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Thank you, Anna. You have no idea how much that means to me." For a brief moment, everything felt right. The weight of the situation was still there, but for the first time, Anna felt like they could handle whatever came next. They had come a long way from the cold, businesslike arrangement they had started with, and now, despite the uncertainty of the future, they were in this together. But as they stood there, their hands brushing lightly, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change again. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next, she wasn't going to face it alone. The days that followed felt like they were moving in slow motion. Richard's condition continued to worsen, and the weight of uncertainty hung over the mansion like a dark cloud. Anna spent her days tending to Richard, always by his side, ensuring he was comfortable, despite knowing that the end was near. But it wasn't just Richard's health that weighed heavily on her mind. Every time she saw Liam, Every time their eyes met, she was reminded of the delicate balance they were trying to maintain. They had crossed a line, one that neither of them could go back from. The walls they had carefully built around themselves were starting to crumble, and the feelings that had once been buried deep inside were rising to the surface. One evening, as Anna was sitting in the study, going over Richard's medical records, Liam entered, his expression more serious than usual. He had been distant lately, his thoughts consumed by his father's deteriorating health, and it was clear that the strain was taking its toll on him. Anna looked up from the papers, her heart aching at the sight of him. He had always been the strong one, the one who had it all together. But now, there was something in his eyes, something raw and vulnerable, that made her heart ache for him. "Anna," Liam said, his voice low, "I need to talk to you." Anna set the papers down and looked at him, her heart beating faster. The tension between them had been building for days, and now it seemed like everything was finally coming to a head. "What is it?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. Liam walked toward her, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "I don't know how to do this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to handle this situation, how to make things right with my father, and I'm so damn tired of pretending like I have all the answers." He paused for a moment, his gaze dropping to the floor before meeting hers again. "I need your help, Anna. Not just for my father, but for me. I can't do this alone anymore." Anna felt her heart swell with compassion. She had always known that Liam was carrying a heavy burden, but hearing him admit it, hearing him ask for help, made her realize just how much he needed her. It wasn't just about taking care of his father anymore. It was about being there for him, too. "You don't have to do this alone, Liam," Anna said, her voice full of reassurance. "I'm here for you, no matter what. I know this is difficult, but we'll get through it together. We'll figure it out." Liam's expression softened, and for a moment, Anna saw a flicker of relief in his eyes. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending like I've got everything under control." Anna stood up, walking over to him and gently placing a hand on his arm. "Liam, you don't have to pretend with me. I see the man you are, the one who's struggling, the one who's doing his best, even when it doesn't feel like enough. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to support you, to help you find your way through this." He looked down at her hand on his arm, and for a moment, he seemed lost in thought. Then, slowly, he reached up and took her hand in his grip firm but gentle. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm so damn grateful for it." For a moment, neither of them said anything. There was no need for words. The weight of everything was hanging in the air between them, but for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel unbearable. They were in this together, and for the first time, Anna felt like she wasn't just playing a part. She was part of something real. As they stood there, holding hands, Anna realized that their journey had only just begun. There would be challenges ahead, there would be moments of doubt, but together, they could face anything. They had already crossed so many lines, and now, there was no turning back. But Anna was no longer afraid. She knew that, for better or worse, she had found something that was worth fighting for. And in that moment, with Liam standing beside her, Anna finally allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the love they had begun to build was worth every risk. The following days felt like a new chapter for Anna and Liam. They had opened up to each other, and despite the uncertainty of Richard's health, the two of them had begun to find comfort in the shared vulnerability they had uncovered. Richard's condition, however, continued to deteriorate. It was clear that the time they had left with him was limited, and the reality of that finality loomed over the mansion like a dark cloud. But in the midst of this, Anna and Liam grew closer. They spent their days together, caring for Richard, but also finding small moments where they could connect with one another, away from the shadows of the past. Anna had never imagined that this contract, this fake marriage, could turn into something real, something meaningful. But every glance, every touch, made it feel like it had become exactly that. It was a quiet afternoon when it happened. Anna was sitting by Richard's bedside, reading to him softly, when Liam walked into the room, his face somber but calm. He had been away for meetings most of the day, but today he looked different, like a man who had finally made peace with the things he had been running from. His eyes met Anna's, and in that moment, she could tell that the weight of his decisions had finally lifted. "Anna," Liam said, his voice steady, "I think it's time. Time for us to move forward. For me to finally let go of all the things that have been holding me back, my father, the business, all of it. And for us to focus on what really matters. What's right in front of us. What we've built together." Anna stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the hope that had been hidden under layers of pain and duty. The tension that had always existed between them, tied to the contract, to the expectations, was finally dissipating, replaced with something real. A bond forged in trust, in vulnerability, in love. "I'm ready, Liam," Anna replied, her voice filled with certainty. "I'm ready to take this step with you, whatever it looks like." Liam stepped closer to her, his hand gently cupping her cheek. For a moment, everything else seemed to fade away. The mansion, the business, the looming loss of Richard. It was just the two of them, standing on the precipice of a new life, a life that they had built together through their trials and triumphs. He leaned down and kissed her gently, a promise of a future they had both longed for, but never thought they would find. As they broke apart, Liam took her hand in his voice steady but full of emotion. "We've come so far, Anna. From where we started to now, it feels like we've both been given a second chance. Not just in this marriage, but in life. I can't imagine facing the future with anyone else but you." Anna's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, her heart swelling with a mixture of joy and disbelief. She had come into this situation with nothing but uncertainty, but now, she was looking at a man who had opened up to her in ways she never expected. A man who had allowed her into his life and into his heart. She had never believed that a contract could turn into love, but here they were, proving that anything was possible. "I don't know what the future holds," Anna said softly, "but I do know this. Whatever it is, I want to face it with you." The days that followed were filled with a quiet happiness. Richard passed away peacefully, but the legacy he left behind was not just the business or the family fortune. It was the love and connection that Anna and Liam had discovered in each other. The mansion, once cold and imposing, now felt like home. They rebuilt their lives together, no longer bound by a contract, but by something far deeper: trust, respect, and love. And so, Anna and Liam began a new chapter in their lives. It wasn't always easy. There were still challenges to face, still things to figure out. But as they stood together, hand in hand, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Their love had started out as a contract, but it had become something far more meaningful, something real. As the years passed, they built their own family, a family not bound by blood, but by the choices they made, the love they shared, and the lives they had created together. And in the end, Anna realized that sometimes, the best things in life come when you least expect them, when you're willing to take a chance on something, someone real.